highlighting the value of nature in supporting psychological, intellectual, and spiritual development. Let us warmly welcome Tina Booth.
Hello, my name is Tina Booth, and I am really very honored and humbled to be able to speak with you today about the work that I've been doing with 12 to 18 adolescents. And I want to go ahead and acknowledge that several of the people who have made this work possible for the work that is going on right now are here in this audience. Jenny Hoagland and Barbara Krumens-Grazzini, and very, very grateful for all of the work that they're doing. So today we're going to go ahead and take a look at the connection between nature and supporting the adolescent. This is going to be slightly interactive, if you wish. Of course, there's always choice. But we'll be pausing every once in a while to go ahead and ask you to maybe cast your mind back to when you were in this space of development, thinking about where you were intellectually, physically, spiritually, okay? And I would like to recommend that if you are interested in some of the things that we're talking about today, if you have not yet had a chance to read Development and Education of the Adolescent, an essay that was presented in Kodaikanal in 1942, it's an excellent source for some of the things we're going to be talking about today. Much like Ms. Grazzini said yesterday, it's interesting to read Montessori chronologically. And so the essay from Kodaikanal 1942 is a mature perspective that comes later in Montessori's work. It actually comes after the publishing of From Childhood to Adolescence, which we know is the source of the appendices that we rely on quite a bit. So looking here on our slide, we have the third plane of development in two different ways. And I'd like to thank again Mrs. Grazzini for orienting us so completely to the constructive rhythm of life chart. I thought that since we were talking about the connection between nature and experience and development, we might take a look at another chart that was created in Rome in 1951. So this is after the development of the constructive rhythm of life chart. It has the same information, but it's presented in perhaps a more organic form. And so it's interesting to see the comparison here, information being the same, but in slightly different presentations. So we can see also that the first plane of development and the third plane of development, those red triangles on the constructive rhythm of life chart, we see those as those big red swellings in the bulb chart. Interesting, we see in the bulb 0 to 6 that all of that energy that is contained within the newborn, the infant, the young child, all of those potentialities. And we see also that it is a split plane as we look at the colors. We see that from 6 to 12, we have an upward trending, very green stem, representing really that blue column period of development. And then again, we see that it's interesting that we have the 12 to 18, that with puberty and construction, the swelling again, not as great as in the 0 to 6, but still there and interesting. Also interesting that there is not a color difference. Suggesting that maybe it's not distinctly a split plane. And then we see the 18 to 21 and onwards is more of an even growth. And I thought that we could see these together, side by side, interesting pieces. Also, for a really excellent explanation and comparison of these two charts, Camillo Grazzini's article, Four Planes of Development, which was presented in 1994 at the AMI National Study Conference in Washington, D.C., is an excellent source. So we have some orientation. Let's go. So here we are. We're recalling that constructive rhythm of life chart. We remember that the movement of the child from the second plane of development to the third plane of development is undergoing a metamorphosis, a rebirth from childhood to adolescence. And this transition is marked by physical, intellectual, social, and psychological changes. The task of the child, now the young adult, has changed. Okay. So that task of the adolescent. Some of the charts that are offered to older elementary children can give us some clues, some insight as to what the task of the adolescent and therefore the prepared environment and the activity which will support them is. We see the chart of interdependencies, which Tanya introduced to us in the last presentation. This was originally developed to support adults learning to work with children. The chart of interdependencies is offered to give a synthesis of the connections between the areas of the abiotic, the biotic, the human entities in the cosmos. This chart explores the many living and non-living components of the world and their interdependencies, and the role of humans in the creation of supranature to satisfy their fundamental needs. The other chart we see is the chart of the Great River. The great lessons of the elementary environment use stories and metaphors to teach about the world and its natural history. The story of the Great River is a story about the interdependencies of the systems in the human body. It's also a story about how individual components of a society work together in an integrated system of independent and interdependent work. And as it can also be used, and it is mentioned in Dr. Montessori's Oxford lectures, as a way of understanding an economy, a healthy economy. So here we have our 12-year-old and our 18-year-old. Adolescents have already moved through the first and second planes and are no longer children. And I know we heard that yesterday, that the development in one plane is the foundation for the development in subsequent planes. These adolescents have been reborn into a new social context, that of the adult. Montessori referred to them as social newborns. And like an infant, the adolescent must orient themselves to their new bodies, their new adult bodies. So when we think about the work of equilibrium, the work of balance, the work of coordination that we see with the very young children, you're all adults, so you all remember when you were going through adolescence, your bodies changed, and you had to learn to use them in different ways. You had to learn to change how you understood your center of gravity, how you understand your coordination. Right? Also, at the same time, while they are adjusting to their new bodies, they're orienting themselves to understanding their new roles in society, including their new roles as members of a family. They are no longer children in the family. They are young adults, new adults in a family. They love their families. Their families are still important to them. But the role that they will play is changing, and it will be different, which also means at the very same time that the adolescents are going through this psychological readjustment of their role in a family, the family members, the adult family members, are also going through similar crises to adjust to this new role, this new individual that they will be relating to. In childhood, from childhood to adolescence, Montessori says that if puberty is on the physical side of transition from an infantile to adult state, there's also on the psychological side a transition from the child who has to live in a family to the man who has to live in society. And we know that this can be daunting and confusing and even a little frightening for the adolescents, as well as for the adults who know them. As presented yesterday, individuals moving into a new plane of development, being reborn into a subsequent plane of development, require a new environment and a new psychodisciplinary approach. Montessori advises us that this new environment must respond to two specific needs of the adolescent, which is the two problems that are of equal importance concerning education at this age. Number one, protection during the time of a difficult transition, and for an understanding of the society which he is about to enter to play his part as a man. So what does Montessori suggest to us? She suggests that the environment that supports the adolescent is the Erdkinder. And I know when we talk about that, there are immediately visions of adolescents working on the land, working with the land, with each other, living in community, making decisions together. That is what the Erdkinder community is. Actually, in an article called A Montessori Community for Adolescents, Grazzini and Crumens-Grazzini define the Erdkinder community as Montessori's answer to the vital needs of adolescents. This answer is actually a set of specific and particular work establishments or work environments that belong both to nature, the earth or the land, and to supernature, the works of man. Through these two, nature and supernature, it's possible to satisfy the needs and tendencies and therefore the requirements of adolescence. It is not a curriculum, and it absolutely requires contact with nature. This work with nature, with the land, directed by the needs of the community in a co-constructed social organization, supports the adolescents in their natural development. Living and working with nature, collaborating with others in community, allows the adolescent to live practically and sensorially the systems, natural and human, that they understood intellectually in the second plane. So I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the characteristics of the adolescent and then relate those to how nature and work with nature helps to support the natural development of these characteristics. So we'll start with physical characteristics. This is where we start the interactive piece. So if you would like, you are invited to go ahead and think back to your adolescent period and think about yourself physically. Physical activity, physical feeling. Just hold that for a second. Okay? Adolescence is a period of rapid physical growth and transformation. We saw that on both of the charts that we looked at today. It requires adolescents to relearn how to move their bodies. Montessori emphasizes the importance of physical expression, of the necessity to provide frequent opportunities for movement, purposeful movement at this time of life. This often runs counter to a more standard model of education for adolescents, where they are often spending most of their day stagnant, still. Adolescents are naturally drawn to physical work and physical expression, as this helps to integrate and organize the mind and the body. They need a variety of different kinds of work, both physical and intellectual, to do this. We also know that recent studies in neurobiology show that, as in the parallel first plane, this is a period of neural pruning and regrowth of neural pathways in the brain. One thing that we can observe is that this can result in spotty recall or disjointed executive functioning. One might ask an adolescent, why did you do that? Or, you knew this yesterday, what happened? And the reply might be, I don't know. And due to all the restructuring of the brain, this may be an honest, not a sarcastic answer. The adolescent really may not know at that moment. However, these neural changes will eventually result in the development of metacognition, thinking about how one thinks, the ability to tolerate ambiguity, and the growth of empathy for others. And I'd like to refer you to the talks that we had yesterday with Chandini, and also the talk today with Tanya, talking about the benefits of connection physically, for physical health and mental health, with exposure to nature. Living in nature can help assuage the anxieties, both physical and psychological, the adolescent is experiencing in this plane of development, and can help serve to support coordination and health. Okay, your turn again. We're going to talk a little bit about intellectual characteristics. So cast your mind back again. Isn't this great? Just what Ms. Grazzini was talking about yesterday. The brain is like this small, but the imagination is that big, so you can actually travel back to the past. It's not as big a journey for you as it is for me, but cast your mind back to being an adolescent. And think about your intellectual self as an adolescent. Your intellectual engagement, intellectual challenges, intellectual joys. What were you passionate about learning? Okay. Cosmic education, as we heard yesterday, is no longer the appropriate form of education for the adolescent, as they are no longer exploring the cosmos. Now the social newborn is urgently trying to find their specific place in the cosmos. Again, this change can be a shock to adults who have known the adolescent as a child. And recalling that the two charts we saw today, we know that development does not follow a linear trajectory. It's not cosmic education on steroids, right? We need a new environment, we need new activity, we need a new approach, a new psychodisciplinary approach to supporting this newborn, this individual that has been reborn, the same person and yet different. Adolescents are gaining knowledge and skills, but the clear expression of this will not look the same way as it did when they were a child. Living in nature, with the opportunities for solitude and contemplation in a nurturing environment, supports the young adolescent during a time when intellectual capacities appear to diminish. But the mind of the adolescent has been nourished during the period of cosmic education. In the Kodaikanal essay, Montessori observes, "This is why we have such intense training between the years of 6 to 12. Thank you, 6